1992, with Benji, who's 10 years old, and Michael, who's 6 years old, and Zadie Joel, who's 96 years old. And Michael and Benji have never heard Zadie Joel's stories about the old country and when he came to this country and what life was like. So they asked Zadie Joel to tell them, and we're recording it, so we'll have it forever. Okay. Do you have a question, Benji, for Zadie Joel?
No.
You're on, Zadie. Tell us about when you came to this country. Tell us what it was like in the old country.
What town did you live in Russia, Zadie?
Well, I was born in a small town in Russia called Shpola. I was the youngest in the family by my parents of 10. 5 sons and 5 daughters, but most of them died in infancy. When I was 7 years old, I was the last in the family. My brother before me was 10 years older. And my parents decided to come to America because they see no future for their children at home. And they would not part with their 2 sons, and the family went together. Our intentions were to go to the United States, but when we come to Quebec, we were told that the immigration, that was in 1903, the immigration to United States was very high, and they will take a chance of not being admitted to the United States. So we were advised to come to the city of Montreal in Canada.
Grandpa, tell us about why you left, why you had to leave Russia, and about the trip
well, I'm
to
just
come
coming
over.
to that. The reason for us leaving Russia, the main reason was that being brought up brought up in a small town in Russia in those days, the government records were not very good. And some of the sons that passed in infancy were not recorded as they were supposed to be alive according to their records. And at 18 they had to go to military service. And them figuring that they were alive, the first one had to report for military service, and he was dead for so many years. So we'd have to pay a fine for the one that did not appear. He's considered an absentee or whatever. He left, how would I call it?
He's a deserter.
He deserted his duties, and the next one in line would have no exemption. He'd have to go and serve. That would be my brother that was alive. So we decided to come to Canada because we wouldn't take a chance going into the United States. But we had no friends or relations in either United States or Canada. And we tried to get established here.
How did you get out of Russia?
Well, also by we had to smuggle through the borders because my brother was nearing the military age. So we had to arrange with a an agent that would smuggle us through the border of, I think it was Austria, that we had to pass. And when we, just after we crossed into Austria, they caught a wagon load or a tally-ho in the old days that they used to have. And he had not only us, but a number of other people that he was smuggling through. And we thought that we're going to be returned right there and then, but we were given assurance that we have no fear of being sent back. Only the agent had to pay a head tax for the people that he was smuggling through. So after he paid the head tax, we continued, and we got to, I think it was Antwerp, in Belgium, where we got the ship, and we went through steerage. It took us 2 weeks to arrive in Quebec.
What does that mean, Zadie? You went through steerage?
In the bottom of the ship, where the immigrants were kept.
What was that like in the bottom of the ship?
Very rough. The life was very, very hard. It was 2 weeks it took us to cross the ocean.
Did you get sick?
No, I was the only one. I was 7 years old. And I think I was the only one that kept well on the ship. I recall it was on a Friday that we came on the ship. It was one night, that Friday night, I didn't feel right. But the rest of the time I played and ran around. I was 7 years old.
You were about Michael's age.
About.
How did you manage with
a little a year older.
A year older.
And we arrived in Quebec.
How did you manage without kosher food?
Well, it was rough. We didn't have very much food at all. And what we had, what we got there was, goyish food. And we never ate that stuff before. So when we arrived in Quebec, my parents met, looked for a Jewish man, and how are you going to find a Jewish man? If he wore a beard, he must be Jewish. So anyway, this is what happened. They stopped this man, and they told him their circumstances, what their plans were, and he persuaded them, instead of trying to go to the United States, which is a risk for them because they were burning their bridges under them. They were poor people, and whatever they had, they used it mostly on the trip, and if they return them, it's going to be pretty rough on them. So he advised us to come to Montreal, which we did. We took the train to Montreal, and this, I recall, mind you, I was 7 years old, there are a lot of things I remember. We left our father at the station with the hand luggage.
What'd you
And
do?
we went, my mother, my brother, and myself went looking for a place where we can live. That was you wouldn't know, it was the Bonaventure station, and it wasn't a Jewish neighborhood. So we start walking, and by chance we come down to the area of Jewish people. Who do you look for? A man with a beard. And they stopped one man, and they asked him, he said, at that time the immigration was very, very high. We asked him where we can find a lodging somewhere. And he said, he'd seen that we were immigrants. He said, I don't know of any myself, but if you want to come into my house, maybe my wife will direct you, which we did. So we came in the house, and first of all they set a table, and you must be hungry. And when we seen bread on the table, Jewish black bread, it was like the manna of the Jewish religion that we're made to believe that we had in the old days. Anyways, this is the way we started, and we...
You didn't know the language, though, right?
Pardon me?
You didn't know the language.
Of course we didn't know the language. If my parents lived here, they died in the 30s, and they couldn't talk English even then. From 1903 was 20, over 30, well, about 30 years, over 30 years.
What language did they speak? What language did they speak?
Yiddish.
Yiddish. What was your father's name, your mother's name, and your brother's name?
Koppel was my father's name. Kenny is named after my
Koppel Gomberg.
Koppel. My brother's name was Ben Zion.
And your mother?
He was called Ben.
Ben.
His name was Ben Zion. My mother was Ethel
What was her maiden name? Do you know?
Geller.
Did she come from?
Later, we found a landsman, not a relation, but a landsman in Montreal, and they were very, very good to us. They were also poor people, but they were like relations, and they showed us where to go and what to do. We didn't know where to go, and this is how we started.
Did your mother come from Shpola also?
I don't know if she was born in Shpola. I know of my father was born in Boslov, and he lost his parents as a young boy. He had an older sister. That's what I've never seen. That is was my aunt, and she helped to bring him up. And that was not in Shpola and Boslov. How far Boslov was from Shpola, I do not know. But I don't think it was too far away.
What happened to her?
To
your aunt?
The sister,
Yeah.
my aunt, she was older than him, and the only time I seen of her is when we got a photograph from her. She was a grandmother already.
Where was
And
she?
the children emigrated to Argentina. At that time, Argentina was also popular for an immigration change. And a lot of Russians went to the Argentine. A lot of Russian Jews went to the Argentine. The government gave them free land, and they became farmers.
Is that what happened to your aunt? Did she go and become a
Her
farmer?
children, a child or children, I don't know how many children she had, but we had a photograph of her with 2 grandchildren. And those grandchildren, well, that photograph must be, I don't know, many, many years old. That was my aunt,
So-
my father's.
So she went to the
The children took her to Argentina
from Russia.
from Russia. What part they have, whether she lived in Boslov, I don't know. I've never seen her.
And that's the only time you ever heard from her.
That's the only time we ever heard from her. But my mother that was my father's sister. My mother had a sister which they owned their own little house. They shared it, she shared it with her sister. It was like a 2-family house.
In
In
Shpola?
Shpola.
And what happened to that sister? Do you know?
She was older than her. She died, no. She also had a mother. the sister, my mother was the youngest in her family. I don't know how many brothers she had. I know she had one sister, and the sister was also older than her. But 6 months after we arrived here, her mother passed away.
That's your
My
maternal grandmother.
My grandmother.
Yeah.
She died. She passed away at 89.
89, that's old then.
Yeah.
And what happened to your mother's sister's family?
Well, the Gellers. Yeah.
Brooklyn.
Yeah. In Brooklyn was my mother's family.
So did none of the family stayed
They
behind?
came to New York after us. See, first of all, they had a daughter, and they were hoping her nephew, that was their nephew, had a daughter. The daughter was close to my brother's age, and they were hoping to have made a shtetl between my brother and that daughter. But my brother didn't care for them. No.
But they were cousins.
Yeah. The Sophie Hofkin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That was my mother's niece.
Oh.
Her sister, my mother's niece.
So your mother had only the one.
Now, wait a minute. No. Sophie was a granddaughter to my sister, to my aunt.
I see. So did your aunt have other children besides, Sophie's mother?
Well, I don't know how many. Her sister, I don't know how many children she had. Sophie's mother died young. She had TB.
What's that?
It's a disease of the
She died of
lungs.
TB, and she left her husband with 2 boys. Yeah,
And so
2 boys and Sophie. 3 grandchildren my aunt had from that daughter. She died, I think, before even I was born. And these,
So
the
Sophie
father,
was older than you.
maybe a year older. But she was a lovely person, a very, very lovely person. I haven't heard from her for a good many years.
From Sophie?
Yeah.
She
I
must
think
be
she
dead
was
by
dead.
now.
She lost her husband too,
Yeah.
and I don't know.
So when you left Russia, did you leave cousins and
In
Russia?
Jordan? Yeah. My mother, in fact, we tried to get some of the family over, and we got a steamship ticket for one. We couldn't afford, and that was on weekly payment, maybe $1 a week or 50 cents a week at that time. So we tried to get her nephew over. He was a tailor and a good tailor. But he wouldn't come. He kept a steamship ticket for some time. And when we got in touch by mail, what about it? He kept, why did you keep the ticket and you didn't start on it, on the trip, to plan the trip? He heard that in America you make $12 a week. And for $12 a week he doesn't want to come. We weren't making $12 a week. So he didn't come and we didn't have we thought, we'll bring him, he'll bring his family, this one will be there. Little by little we'll have a family there. But it didn't work out, that's all. Then Sophie's father was remarried. He had another family, though. He was a young man when she died. She left him with 3 young children. So they went to Philadelphia afterwards.
Oh, yeah.
And that's how it came about. And we found out that they were there in Philadelphia. I went to see them. I used to keep in contact with them. They were very nice. Sophie was very nice.
So you had no more family left then, as far as
Well,
Shpola.
My father's family, I don't know of. He had no brothers. As far as I know, he had no brothers. That's what I
Uncles,
was told.
aunts, nobody?
And he had one sister.
She was the one that went to Argentina.
She's the one that the children took out to Argentina.
But he had no uncles or aunts or cousins?
My father, I never knew of. I never knew of. But my mother had a couple of brothers. I don't know how many she had. I recall one brother came to our little town. He didn't live in Shpola. He came riding on a horse. Maybe it's a dream, but I remember, look, I had so many years. And he was of comfortable means. And he heard that she's planning to go to America, and he came to tell her not to go, to give them money, my brother, to give him money for a steamship ticket to let him go himself. My mother said under no condition was to let him go alone. We all go or we all stay. And she said,
So when you got here, did they have schools for you, or is it was it compulsory for you to go to school?
I don't know if they had any. Well, we didn't. We weren't compelled. In other words, I don't know.
But you did go to school?
Yeah, I went to the...
How long did you...
They had the Baron de Hurst School on Blurry Street.
Was that a public...
It was a Protestant, under the Protestant system. And they had non-Jewish teachers. They had a couple of Jewish teachers. I remember my teachers yet. And Mrs. Silver, and her husband was the principal, Silver. Yeah.
How long did you go to school?
A few years. I went to the fourth year, I think. Fourth year, we used to get promoted twice a year then.
Yeah.
I went to the Baron de Hurst. I didn't go along because it was a long way out, a distance from the house. We lived on Sangonet Street, and this was on Blurry, near Ontario, was the Baron de Hurst School. So I transferred to the Dufferin School. Dufferin School was on St. Urban Street, near Dorchester, between Dorchester and Lagochester. And I went there a couple of years, to the fourth year, first half.
How did you make out in school without knowing the language?
Well, I took up the language. I had no trouble for it.
You learned it even before you went to school?
During school. I didn't go to school immediately. Maybe, I don't know if I was here for a year before I went.
Oh. And how about your brother? He didn't go to school here.
No. My brother, when we came here, he was already a smoker. Smoked. So,
Cigarettes?
Cigarettes, yeah. So you got to go and get some cigarettes to smoke. It goes out on Dorchester. You might have remembered it, but on Dorchester Street there was a park there. I don't know if you remember that. No, it wasn't. It didn't even go down those districts. That was the old district. There was a Federal Tobacco store on Dorchester, and that was a Jewish location. And they used to sell tobacco by the pound and papers, and you'd roll yourself. So you came in. There was a lot of greenhorns at that time, just arrivals that came in. And you start talking, must have been maybe 17 years old, about 10 years old. And who are you? Where are you? Where are you from? This one's a lunchman here, this one a lunchman there. So somebody asked him, he started telling him, the lunchman from Shpola and so on. Shpola? So you got a lunchman here? We didn't even know. Who's the lunchman? Come, I'll take you. Not far away from there. A street called, it was just the Montreal General Hospital used to be on Dorchester Street. This was on Dorchester East. And that store used to be on Dorchester West, near St. Urban Street. St. Lawrence was the middle section. Come, I'll take you there. Comes in, you got on. Who are you? What are you? Start telling a couple of parents there for the mother. Oh, and you're here alone? They knew how. And you're here alone? He said, no, I'm not alone. My parents are here too. So this is the parents that started this. Yeah, so what?
Who was this family, the Landsman?
Backman.
Okay.
Backman. One of them, mind you, I remember them. There was Sarah, there was a few, she had maybe 6 children, I think. Nice people. They were also not long in the country, maybe 2-3 years. They were longer than us. So, anyways, they treated us like it was close relations. If she didn't come, we got a place to live in on St. Urban Street, a double parlor. They lived on, that was on west side, St. Urban was west, you see. They lived east, just past the hospital on Demara Street, near Cadge. If she didn't come herself to see it, like today, she sent a child to see how we're doing. Every day.
Were you friends with them in the
So,
old country?
Yeah. The Backmans lived by my parents at one time. In that little house.
Did your family make a living in Shpola?
Yeah.
What did your father do?
He was a candle maker.
And he made a living from that?
A living
Enough to stay alive.
Yeah. Well, in the old country, if you made 5 rubles a week, you made a living.
What happened when he came here?
Well, when he came here, he had a tough job to get adjusted.
He couldn't find work?
He couldn't find work. He had no trade. That was his trade in the old country, but here, he didn't even think of it. You see?
He couldn't make candles here?
They must have, I'm sure. They're still making candles today, eh? If he only had the brains and the knowledge. Anyway, he started to become a peddler. Yeah, this is the way.
And is that the way he earned his living, as a peddler?
Yeah, my mother used to rent a couple of rooms, so the rent didn't cost us nothing. It wasn't an easy life for him.
It was worse here than it was there, right?
Yeah. My father used to, what did you want? And my mother had to say, why did you make me come here? Why didn't you send them alone? Always used to. Why didn't you send them alone? He would look, as much as he loved my brother, but he says he'd send them alone, and he was already out. Well, I never knew my father as a young man. I never knew him.
You were number 10.
I was number 10.
So
but I never knew him as a young man because he always wore a beard. So he was a young man. He was still a young man. He was under 50 when he came here.
Oh, he was.
Sure.
So your mother was even younger.
Naturally.
Yeah.
Maybe about 2 years, I think.
So when they got here, what happened to your father? He just didn't make it.
He peddled, knocked out a living. Knocked out a living.
And then what happened with Ben?
Yeah. We came to the Backmans. Mr. Backman is a cutter by caps. And my brother was a cap maker in the old country.
Oh, he worked
He was
already.
Yeah. You see? So he took him to his factory and they got a job there.
Now, what did he do there, Ben?
An operator.
Oh, he was a machine operator.
Yeah. So he started working there. He was a decent young man. And there worked another fellow named Fievel. I forget his second name. And he knew the Rams. And the Ram had a daughter. And he tried to make a shidduch.
How old was...
19.
She was 9. And how old was Ben at that time?
My brother was 19 years
Oh.
old.
So they
made
a shit of
him.
him.
No, God,
They got married.
Oh.
yeah. So it wasn't easy for them. Like,
So they were married at 19.
yeah, he was around about 19.
So your parents lost his support.
They made a better living than him.
Your parents did. So they had to help him. Now, at that time, you were then only 9 years old. Were you still in school, or you were out of school already?
No, I was still in school. I started maybe 8 years ago. I was 8 years old.
So how long? When did you quit school?
Maybe 11, 12. I don't recall exactly. Maybe 11, 12.
Because it had to. You didn't go to high school.
No,
So
I didn't finish school.
So school.
I didn't get promoted that term.
Yeah.
So I quit.
Okay. Oh, so you were still in elementary school then?
Yeah.
Public school.
Yeah.
So.
Different school.
Oh, I see. So when you got here at 8 years old,
Yeah.
what grade did
Yeah.
they put you into?
Oh, I don't recall. It wasn't kindergarten, no.
Oh,
No.
so they started you a little ahead.
Yeah, I must have been about 8 years. I didn't go to school immediately.
Yeah.
First of all, I came with long pants. And the kids seen me with long pants. They thought I was from who knows where.
They didn't
yeah.
wear. The kids didn't wear long pants.
No, they used to wear short pants, bloomers they used to call them.
No, not bloomers.
Bloomers.
The girls wore bloomers.
No, the boys.
They called bloomers.
Yeah.
What were they, like shorts?
No, there was a buckle on them here.
Oh, like breeches.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, it's something like breeches. They were short anyway.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
By us, a kid like me wore long pants already.
How old did you have to be to wear those long pants at home in Russia?
How old you have to be? Oh, I don't know. I couldn't.
Why do you have to be a certain age
I
to wear
couldn't
pants?
recall that.
Well, that's the custom that
I couldn't recall that.
at certain ages you got certain privileges almost. And very often in this country, when you were 13, you got your first pair of long pants.
No, over there, no.
But in this country,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
often that's
Yeah.
the way it worked, yeah.
I don't know if they had a certain age. No, I
No?
don't recall, no. Not
Were you
much.
still going to Cheder when you came here?
Oh, I went to
Hebrew
Cheder
school.
when I was, maybe 4 years old.
But how did they teach you? You didn't know how to read.
In Cheder?
Yeah.
How do they teach any child? There's a rabbi that hardly makes a living,
Yeah.
and you sit there all day.
Was it all day at 4 years
All
old?
day, a good part of the day. I remember, once I seen my mother pass through, and I carried on. First of all, when my mother, this is what I was told, when my mother arranged with a rabbi to take us on, the first thing she told him, I want you to know that you must never lay a hand on my child. Never. Anything he does wrong, tell me.
Now, was it the custom to hit the kids?
Oh, yeah.
The rabbis
Oh,
did?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
That was in Russia or here?
no, in Russia. In Russia, in Russia. But this was the first arrangement he had.
And did he stick by the bargain?
Oh, yes, you had to.
Yeah.
You had to. You had to. But the rabbi used to have a helper. And, in a little town like ours there, I don't think they had a sidewalk. I don't recall. But there was a lot of mud there. And especially in the spring, the mud was maybe knee deep. So we had what they call, I forget what they call, a behelfer.
Oh, a behelfer?
Behelfer.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So he was like the assistant to the rabbi.
Yeah.
So he'd come to the pupil and dress him and say Moidiana,
What is that?
prayer in the morning. He'd say the prayer with him in the morning, and then if there was a mudya, he'd put you on his back. The mother would give the kid a little luncheon, and if the luncheon was good, he'd share it with you.
That was part
it
of
was
his
like,
speech.
you seen Fiddler on the Roof?
Yeah.
I seen it only the other day. It reminded me a little of the old home.
Yeah.
No.
Now, what kind of a house did you live in Russia? Was it a mud floor? I mean,
A mud floor.
Mud floor.
And you had to, they used to use manure up it from cow manure or something. They used to work it out, and it used to come beautifully clean. And the mother was very...
How many rooms did you have?
Maybe 2.
2 rooms.
Maybe 2.
So the parents slept in
And
one?
a built-in oven, like.
Mm-hmm.
Look, some of it I recall, but very vivid.
And what was it like when you came here? What kind of a house?
One thing I remember, and I'll never forget. I'll never forget it. I had a grandmother, right? And she'd give her life for her daughter's children, right? But I never said goodbye to her. I was too excited. I didn't say goodbye to her when I left for America.
And that bothered you?
Bothered me. I still remember it.
I'm sure she must have understood what was going on.
Yeah. Well, her sister wrote her. I remember hearing of it. She wrote her. And first of all, my mother, both of them couldn't read or write. Hebrew they could read. So she told her that her mother, it was her mother too, you see, but the older sister. So she told her that she comes out. She was already like senile, what they call them.
Mm-hmm.
She'd come outside and talk to herself about us, what happened to us, where are we.
So she never really heard from you after you got here?
No, I don't know. I think we did. I don't know.
You didn't have somebody in the
It was short time after, as I say. As soon as we got a little on our feet, we tried to get my mother tried to get that nephew over. And he kept the ticket for some time, then changed his mind. You heard that in America you make $12 a week, and that's not enough for him.
So when did you get your first job?
I got my first job. My first job. There used to be a drugstore at the corner of St. Lawrence and Dorchester named Albert, and a message boy. So he put me down the basement to wash bottles. At one time there was no pills. The druggists had to, it was all liquid, and they had to make a prescription from the liquid. So he put me down the basement to wash bottles. So I washed bottles for one day. I said, no, that's the job for me.
How much did he pay you for that? Do you remember?
I didn't get paid.
Oh.
Didn't go back for the pay. I quit the job.
So then what did you do? What kind of work did you get?
Then I got a job. I remember there was, I don't know how I got it. I don't recall how I got it. I worked for the Consolidated Plate Glass Company. I still remember the name. The man's name, the boss was Hobbs. They were a large concern. They had a branch in Toronto and another one in Winnipeg. And their place was on St. Sulpice Street. You heard of the Notre Dame Church?
Yeah, sure.
The corner of Notre Dame Church was St. Sulpice Street. And this was going down to St. Paul Street. There was St. James Street, Notre Dame Street, and then it was St. Paul Street. And just before St. Paul was the Consolidated Plate Glass Company. I worked there as an office boy.
How many hours a week did you, or a day did you work?
I worked all day.
I know. What was the day? It started at what, around 8 o'clock?
I don't.
And how many days a week?
5.5 of them.
Half a day on Saturday? And do you remember what they paid you?
Yeah.
$3.
$3.
$3 a week.
$3
$3
a week.
a week. And how much of it went to
I
your
used to go to the post office. They'd send me. The post office was on St. James Street, not far. Their bank was the Bank of Montreal, the head office, also on St. James Street,
Yeah.
and it was right near the post office. And I used to copy the letters. Now they have a copying machine.
And you used to have to copy for their files.
The stenographer, when she got through, I had to make a copy for the book. It was what do you call it, a tissue paper booklet. The leaves were of tissue paper. And the office boy's work was to take that mail of the day and copy that into the book. How did you do it? You had, it was a kind of a canvas cloth. You'd wet it. The typewriter had indelible ribbon. It was the ribbon was indelible. So you take the damp cloth, put the letter in one side, and put the cloth on. I don't recall exactly how it was done, but I do remember that canvas, a schmott, and you had a press that it was like this here, to a flat piece, and there was a handle there, and you turn the handle down and press it, and this would copy into the.
Sounds very complicated.
No, it was very simple. That was my job, and take it to the post office.
How much of that money?
The mail was 1 cent in the
1
city,
cent,
2 cents out of town,
yeah.
and the Star, a paper. We had the Montreal Star. We had the Gazette. That was a morning paper. Then we had an afternoon paper with the Star. That was the big paper. The Gazette and the Star. I think the Star was even bigger than the Gazette. The distribution. And the Gazette, the Star, then the Herald, and the Witness was a paper like you get the Daily News in New York. What they call that size? The small paper.
Tabloid.
Tabloid.
Yeah.
That was the...
How much did you pay for the Star?
Star was a cent.
1 cent.
La Presse was a cent. The La Patrie, that's the French paper, was also a cent. The Gazette, I can't remember if it was 2 cents or 5 cents. I'm not sure.
5 cents.
The Gazette was more.
Why? Do you know why it was more?
It was read by a lot of people that made investments in the market. They get their market news. It was a morning paper.
How old were you when you started to work there? Do you know?
Maybe about 12. Maybe
How much of your money went to your mother?
I don't recall. But the most I paid for board when I started working was $3 a week.
How old were you then? Were you living with your parents at that
Oh,
time?
yeah.
Oh, and you paid your mother $3 a week for board,
And that was what I paid for board.
and that you got your food there.
Well,
Yeah,
that's true.
everything. Yeah.
And if I didn't work, I didn't pay.
Oh.
I used to, when I started working already in the trade, I made $7 a week for 56 hours a week.
How old were you?
Oh, I must have been about. Well, I worked for my brother. He was supposed to have been making caps. He started on his own, and I was the only employee there.
Oh, and he was teaching you how
That's
to.
where I learned.
Oh, so he taught you a trade. Did he pay you?
he paid me when he had money. And out of season, he'd owe me the money. If the season came, he'd it was a rough life.
So when you were earning $7 a week, what expenses did you have out of that $7?
Well, to take care of myself. And
So you contributed $3 a week to the house.
to the house.
Yeah. And how old were you when you first got married?
I was married in 1918. I was born in 1896, right?
So you're 22. How old was your wife?
Sure, I'm not sure. A year or two younger.
What was her name?
Younger.
What was her?
Esther.
Esther what?
Lessig. L-E-S-S-I-K. They call themselves Lesser now.
L-E-S-S-I-K. Yeah. And was she from the old country too? Yeah.
How did you meet her, Zadie? Was it an arranged marriage or?
Arranged, yeah.
What do you mean arranged?
Also,
Tell him what an arranged
her
marriage.
mother
People
shopped in the same grocery, and you get to know each other, and you got a son, I have a daughter, and this is how it was arranged.
So your son, first son Lou, was born.
I was married on August 25th, and he was born on June 26th, 10 months and 1 day.
And when did she get sick, your wife?
Just after Louis was born.
So she was what, 21, 22 or in?
21, 22.
Did they know immediately what she had, or did they have trouble diagnosing?
No, they knew.
They knew.
What was it?
She had diabetes,
Oh,
and that was a very severe disease then.
Yeah.
but don't you have it?
Yeah, but they have medicine for it now. They didn't have then.
No.
So how
When
long
did
was she
you see
sick?
it?
Oh, well,
A year, let's see. Yeah. Wait. He was a year old. She had it as a slip maybe a year
yeah.
after he was born. So in other words, it was about 2 years after I was married. Something like that. No, or he was 2 years old. He was 2 years
2 years.
old when he lost his
So what is it?
The body can't be nourished because the sugar, the insulin,
And
doesn't take the sugar to the cells where it nourishes the body, because the body does not make insulin, and that's the way the sugar gets the nourishment
you
gets
have
to
to
the
go for
body,
tests and
and the body literally starves.
I do remember there was supposed to be a specialist, Rabinovich. I am Rabinovich. She used to say, I am Rabinovich. And she was supposed to have gone for to see him at a certain time. This I'll never forget. When he said, she started giving him an excuse. She couldn't come or something. He said, we'll get you. We'll get you.
Meaning what?
We'll get you. Meaning she'll come to them, eh? Sure enough, it's a week or two later, she was brought in sick. What was the cure? Starvation diet. Starvation diet. What was the starvation diet? Water. Nothing else.
Really, no food?
No.
Well, there was no way they could survive that way.
No. But he fight. I remember Rabinovich. I am Rabinovich. I remember a little short guy, he's Jewish. Fight, he said. There's something coming out. There's something coming out. They were talking of insulin. He didn't tell us what it was. There's something going to be. He says, fight. Hold on. No.
What year was this?
1920.
Because insulin was discovered shortly after. I think.
Shortly after. Her
19.
brother got diabetes and he lived to an old age.
So So the insulin was in time to save him.
That's right.
So there's a lot of diabetes in that family.
The mother lived to an old age. I
Did
never
she
heard
have
of
it?
No. Not that I know of. But the brother, I think the other one too, Joe, also had diabetes. But he lived to an old age.
So it must be a very bad time for you. How did you manage? Well, you had a young baby. How did you manage?
Good job.
Was your mother of help to you at the time?
Yeah, but you're the sick woman.
What was wrong with your mother? What did she?
I don't know.
What did your father die of?
My father was sick for 1 week.
Really?
He took to bed. I've never known my father to be in bed. 1 week he was sick.
Do you have any idea what he died of?
They claimed that he had, it was a sickness without pain. You lose your strength. I forget what they get called.
The kidney.
Oh, look at now.
A kidney disease, was it?
A kidney.
It was kidney disease.
Something to do with the kidneys, but the doctor explained it to me at that time. I said, how come he never complained? He said, he didn't complain. He said, he was losing his strength. He said, he didn't complain. He had no pain, but he was losing his strength.
How old was he,
So,
do you know?
he was in the 70s.
And then your mother?
Mother died about 2 years after, 2 or 3 years after. No, she was in bed for time without care, without proper care. There was care, there was nobody to help her.
You don't know what she had?
No, she was a sickly woman. She thought she had a heart condition, so she went to a heart doctor. She had a doctorship that was the first, one of the first Jewish doctors that Montreal had. And all the Jewish people used to use doctorship with a horse and buggy used to travel.
What did he charge for a house visit?
$1 a house call. $1 a house.
Maybe we should see if we could see that doctor, huh?
It's cheap.
$1 a house call.
What, do you know what you paid for rent? Approximately?
$12, $14, $13.
For a heated place or non-heated?
No. Who knew of a heated place?
So you had to have your own...
We used to use coal oil. There was
no lamps.
There were very few homes with electricity. Very few.
When do you recall your first home with electricity?
One of the first I remember was on St. George Street. That was, years later. That was what? 1917, I think, 1960. 1960. On St. George near Dorchester.
Then you went through the First World War.
Oh, well, sure. I was called in the First World War. I got an exemption until my class would be called. I was put in class B instead of A. A was called, but B was not called yet.
Well,
And the war ended before they called the class B, and I was...
But didn't you have a problem with hearing?
That's why I was put in class B.
Oh. And how were you affected by the war? Do you recall?
Affected in what way?
Well, your lives, were they affected very much?
No, look, at that time, in 1918, oh no, before that, whole business. I worked for a firm, the John W. Peck. We were treated rough. It was a hard life. It was hard. But this is the way. What else could we have done? We had to live that way. I got a job. First of all, for some time I didn't have a job. I didn't want to go back to camps. I looked for other work. What could I do? What did I know? I went back. I met somebody. He told me he worked for the Redmond Company, to go up to get a job there. I come up to the Redmond Company, and I get a job. The foreman was a Frenchman, also a very large concern, the Redmond Company.
What did they do?
They were manufacturers. At that time, they manufactured caps, gloves, and furs. They had also an office in Toronto and another one in Winnipeg. They were a large concern on Inspector Street. So and the foreman was a Frenchman. And everyone he knew, all the French, he made cap makers out of them. And they worked there. When they were very busy and they couldn't produce enough, they'd look for the men to work. So who were the men? The few Jewish men. So it was piecework. So anyways, I got a job there, and the Jew was the last hired and first fired. When they finished the season, in the season they'd give you a 5 dozen lot without waiting. When the season was over, they'd give you a dozen or a dozen and a half, and you'd wait for 2-3 hours until you'd get it. This is piecework.
Grandpa,
So-
when did you meet your second wife?
Well, that's many years later. You're talking.
With 30 minutes left. When did you?
I met her through, well, I worked mindset. I went from Redmond. I remember Redmond Company paid, I recall, 85 cents for a dozen. Produce a dozen caps, 85 cents. I went to so I started producing. I was making 4 dozen a day already. So I was happy. 4 dozen a day at 85 cents. That was more than I made. I worked for one place for a short time at $7 a week for 56 hours. You see? And I had to work by the week. Here I worked piecework. And I worked hard, but it wasn't as hard as working on the week because the boss would watch you how many times you'd go to the toilet. So when it got slack, as I tell you, so they got rid of that. A few men, they'd get rid of them. The girls would get a few dozen. The men would get a dozen, dozen and a half, and wait 2-3 hours. So I went to, there was another large concern, Cornice and Beaver and St. Lawrence, John W. Peck. They made clothing. Oh, they had, in the clothing they had 1,000 workers. So for the same cap, they paid $1.05 a dozen. And I started to work there. And I started producing 5 dozen a day.
Wow.
Anyways, I produced more than any of the workers in the shop there. So I worked there, and the war was on.
What World War II?
My mother, the First World War. My mother was feared, was haste. She left the old country. That children shall not go to be a soldier, and here the war is on. So I should get away. I should go to New York. So, yeah. In the meantime, I get engaged
Who did you get engaged to?
to Louis' mother.
Oh, okay.
Esther.
And what did I do? Anyways, I went to New York. I had a friend in New York. I wrote him that I'm coming, a very good friend of mine. I knew from Montreal. And he told me to come down. He said, come down right away. He said, there's work to be had. He gave me an address, and I come to New York, and I look for that address. The letter I wrote him was reached him. I look for that address. There's no such number. And here, I don't know where to go, what to do. I go up and down. I couldn't find him. I should have found a room to stay and wait. No, I said, well, I'll go to Philadelphia. I had Sophie there. She wasn't married yet. She was living with her parents. What was her name? The father's name? Oh, I forget it. Anyway, I come there and I write, this fellow Wolf was his name. And he writes me, come right away. He says, I got a job for you. I started working already in Philadelphia at Caps. But there they had a different system. They had, besides making the cap always everywhere, the linings was made by a lining maker. In Philadelphia, they had a system where the operator had to make his own linings. I can make a cap faster than I can make a lining. So I said, what the heck, I'm not going to stay in Philadelphia. I went there. And then that was just when the United States, shortly after the United States declared war into Germany. They went into the war in 1917, I think it was, 16 or 17. We started in 1914. Anyways, there was such a rush, demand for help in New York that nobody wanted to work on civil work. They wanted to work on uniform work. The uniform work paid well because it was piecework. They paid $2.25 a dozen, and you could make 5 dozen a day. You see?
You'd almost get rich.
So, sure. So anyways, nobody wanted to work on regular work. Anyways, I get a job, and I get $40 a week already. And from there it started. Anyways, I came back and got married. I come back to Montreal, and when the union starts, they want to make a week work system. The union didn't go for piecework. They wanted a week work system. I didn't want it because I used to come in at 9 o'clock. I never came in at 8. The foreman used to tell me, why don't you come in a little ahead of the boss at least? I said, what the heck is it your business? I said, it's my time. I worked on piecework, and that's what I liked. When I felt like working, I worked. When I didn't feel like working, I didn't work. Anyway, but I was in the committee to arrange a piecework system. I was chosen to go act as the committee member. Anyway, they agreed on the piecework text. How are they going to arrange the salary? What they'll check back what you earned for the year, and they'll break it into 52 weeks. And that didn't suit me because I used to play around at times when there was no work, you see. And here, they settled me. I averaged up, it's over $30 a week. They put me down for $30. I worked 1 week. I come in 15 minutes late. I see a deduction of my pay. I said, no, that won't do for me. I says, I'm going downtown. Downtown was the other factories. I went down to one guy, and the first week I started working. He wanted to see what I could do, and I settled for $45 a week already. And he treated me like a toy, a value, a great value. He'd come down, Mr. Gomberg, why don't you get up and go? And I needed that trimming, like, why don't you get up there? Good, take a walk. I wanted to prove that I can produce, you see. I produced more than what he ever seen from others. All of a sudden, I'm sitting by the machine. I was already married. I'm sitting by the machine. He comes over, sits near me, and starts talking to me. Forget what he talked to me about. All of a sudden, he was very strict. Nobody liked him, but he respected me. He thought I had the world of me. He had a foreman too, but he was not but shtetl, kvalvasa. So here I'm getting $45 a week already. Not only 45, and we're working overtime. And I'm making already almost $60 a week.
That was what, 1918?
Just after the war. Just after the war. And I'm making already $60, nearly $60 a week. And I'm sitting working, all of a sudden, I'm that place. He didn't have much help because it was hard to get. All of a sudden, he comes over, Mr. Gomberg, you're wanted on the telephone. I never heard it from anybody. He never called anybody to the phone, but he called me to the phone. You're wanted on the telephone. I come to the telephone. A guy, Backler, had a blocker named Berman. Berman speaking. Backler wants to see you. So I sat down. Come back to the machine, sit down. He comes over. 12 also. Wer das gewähnt, Apollo Charido. Wer das gewähnt, the wife? I said, no, it was Backler. Oh,
You knew Backler?
Oh, boy. They were terrible enemies. Terrible enemies. It was Backler. Sure. At night I finish my work. I go up to Backler. What do you want? Start talking. What do you want? I want $60 a week. That's what I figured. Why? First of all, I knew both of them, and I sized them up. Backler was more reliable than Kvalvasa, and I could depend more on Backler than I can on Kvalvasa. $60 a week? You crazy? I said, no. Well, he said, show me who gets $60 a week. I said, Mr. Backler, I said, I don't have to show anybody. I said, I'm going to show them that I get $60 a week. He starts to bargain. He's giving me 50. He's giving me 55. I said, it's $60 a week. He comes up. He said, well, he said, I'll give you $58 if you take it or leave it. I seen he meant already. I start figuring over $2. And here it's more reliable. I said, Caldwell said today he's busy and I'm making $60 a week, but I'm working overtime. I wanted to make the same wages without overtime. That's all I want. That's how I had the nerve to ask $60. So I work. Yeah, he says, is there anybody else there? I said, yes. My friend Wolf was there. Can you get him? I said, I'll try. So I take the job on. I called this fellow, Wolf. I said, look, you can make a change. Oh, there was another fellow, Louis Morris, that worked for me afterwards. He was there too. So him, you had to be a politician. Louis Morris was a good, fast worker. I didn't want him to take that job because it wouldn't be. I sent him to Peck's, and he got a job for $50 a week at Peck's. And I'm getting $58. I worked the first week, and I opened the second week pay. I open up the envelope. I says, I give a look. I see three $20 bills. Sophie Godell, that worked for me after. You remember Sophie?
Sure.
She worked in the office there. I come over. I said, Mr. Racker, I said, your girl made a mistake. I said, oh, he said, I didn't want to break a $20 bill for you. Take it. So, and later on, he wanted to make a corporation, and I come in as a treasurer of the company. And I worked there. I took a cut of wages, but I shared in the profits with Fogel. He took him in. And I worked there, and he had a hell of a big mouth back then, but he treated me with great respect, always. I used to run the work already, to give out the work. I was like, say, a working foreman. And he's not satisfied with that I might leave. Yeah. 2 weeks after, Volvosser calls up this Wolf, and he wants him back. And he arranges with him a better wage, a good wage, not $60, but a good wage. He was working there at that time, maybe $30 a week. He was a slow worker, but afterwards he became wealthy. He lived and died in California. He was a ladies' hat man. He did a lot of work for the movie companies. Anyways, he called him back. And here, yeah, at that time, Backler used to buy a lot of, there was a guy that used to buy old rags, schmatterstocke, suits, coats, and cut them up into caps and sell them to
He
Backler.
made the caps?
Yeah, they made caps out of them. I said, one thing, I said, yeah, before I agree to anything, I said, I don't work on schmuckers. So the worker used to work in this damn, was laying in a rag shop for who knows that. I said, I don't work on schmuckers. I said, I'm not going to touch that. That's he promised, you don't touch it. Anyways, he wants a contract I should give him. And he takes me to his notary to sign the contract for $3,120 a week, a year.
For how many years?
2 years. And the notary, I remember, these things I remember, Tirot was the notary. If you'd asked me, I wouldn't. Tirot, an old man. And he heard $3,120 a year. He says, that's more than I make. I went to college. I went to college, he says, and I was a youngster. Look, I went to college and I don't make that. So anyways, this is how it got started. And he had a big mouth back then. And he took a terrible dislike to folk. He hated his guts. And he was so nervy. I remember when Fogel came to him, he said, Mr. Backler, what have you got against me? I became, when a salesman come in to sell him yard goods or anything, he'd call me, Bolaboost, come. I'd make the choice. I'd have to make selections with him. But Fogel would say, what have you got against me? And Fogel was supposed to be, well, look, he wasn't nice to me too. He was, a president in the synagogue, he was the president in the society, he was, supposed to be a Balabatische Mensch. Vogel, ihr gleich auch nicht, also ich weiß nicht von was. Ihr gleich auch nicht. She had the nerve to tell him that. So anyway, I said, look, Vogel, yeah. So this is the way it went on, but he always respected me. One time he had a special, one cap for somebody that he had, I don't recall who. And he told me, I knew I'd have to get it made. Either I make it or I give it to somebody to make. And he was out, and then he came back, and the cap wasn't made. And he started in the place. What do I need partnered for in Yiddish? What do I need partnered for? Who wanted partnered? Who wanted partnered? I said, Mr. Backler, I said, you take me in the office. I said, we'll talk there. Yeah. I walked in. I said, Mr. Backler, I said, if you have anything to say to me, I said, you say it to me. Don't say it in the shop. Yeah. What do I want partner? I said, and our contract had to end yet another year from that of our cooperation. I said, Mr. Backler, what has to be next year will be this year. I said, we're finishing this year. All right. That was maybe June, July. And we used to take, it was the end of the year, like the end of December. And I worked. I already made up my mind. I'm not renewing it. He said, yeah. It's yeah. I told him, I said, it's going to end this year instead of next year. I mean it. I says, Fogel, I said, don't worry. I said, you're coming with me. And this is the way it went.
He let you out of the contract?
Eh?
He let you out of the contract?
Wait a minute. No, yes. He let us out of the contract. So...
Yeah, everything's okay. It's taping right now. Here we are. Focusing. Yeah, now we're recording and I don't have that light. Okay.
And I don't talk of the future. My mind was that I'm finishing this December because he said yes. We start taking stock at December. We stopped for a week. And we're taking stock and, there was measuring, there was counting and this and that, and I was doing it, and we put it on, put tickets on it, and then the Sophie would come around and put it on a list, and the prices and so on. Anyway, I happened to be in a little room where we had the trimmings. We had a special, like a cupboard. We were together alone from there was nobody in the place. The help was laid off. Wie wollt wir gehen, abplanen, als wir so losen im Schinker gehen, und wir sollen nun gehen zusammen? In Yiddish. I swear, we'll see. He gave me a proposition already. We should get rid of Fogel. I said, we'll see. What worried me? I was afraid that if we're going to if he'll know that I plan to go with Fogel, he's going to give me, no, I'm going, if I'm going alone, how was it? No. I was afraid of this, that he's going to give us merchandise instead of our money. You had to give us our money, you see? So I was afraid that he'll give me merchandise. Yeah. I went out, that is, I made him believe I'm going out myself, not with Fogel. Fogel is going to buy a candy store. That's what he had, Fogel, when he came to him. He had a candy store on Laurier Avenue near that movie theater there. So I told, he was under the impression that I'm going alone. Fogel is going in a candy store because that's all he was fit for. So the year ended, yeah. Another, before we finished the stock taking, also no fights, mind you. I was afraid to see, because look, he had the money, I had nothing. So we're standing there up at the, something you had to show me, Kimball Bush. And it tells me in Yiddish, Ochen weiß mir, als ihr darf sich rechnen mit dir. That I have to call you it. Oh, I felt like hitting him. I said, Mr. Backler. Right away, he seemed to change me. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I said, no, you're going to wait till I'll tell you. I said, I'll talk to you. I said, I am just as much person as you are. I said, the only difference is, and I'm talking, and he said, I'm sorry. I said, I'm the same person as you are. The only difference is that you have money, I have not. I said, yeah. When Qualwasser called that other man back, I said to myself, what the hell? He called him, he didn't call me. I said, what the hell? Leave it. He called him. I said, leave it. A week, 2, 3, sure enough. Must have been maybe a month later or more. This friend of mine, Qualwasser wants to see you. I said, well, all right, I'll try. I want $75 a week. Yeah, first of all, Mr. Gomberg, wasn't nice. No, I didn't do the right thing. I couldn't have taken a couple of people from him. He needed help. What I did, I left him. That's all. I didn't have no contract. I didn't make an arrangement with him. I went to better myself. Mr. Gomberg, wasn't nice. Mr. Qualwasser, I am in business like you. Just like that. I am in business like you. Look, I'm in business too. What? You're in business to sell caps for the higher prices. I'm in business to make caps for the higher prices. So I'm in business like you. Yeah, but $75 it could be paid. No, and this is, outside your phone was a dirty deal that he tried to get, that he gave me.
He was dishonest? He was dishonest?
Well, he was dishonest, too tricky. Even Samet, you remember Samet, eh? My best friend, he took him away from me. But Samet was away only 1 week. He came back. I didn't try to get Samet back. Samet came to me. That son of a bee, he's crazy. Him and, what do you call her? Anne Shenani. When I asked, it never dawned on me that he's going to get Anne Shenani, eh? Harry started taking out Anne Shenani, and that's why she remained there, eh?
We're at a tape.
That?
Yeah, I remember that.
You can keep talking, but you're not on tape anymore.